What's going on, guys? Welcome to Everything Always. My name is Michael Roman. We've actually had 4 separate reports about Spider-Man in the MCU over the last week, a couple of really interesting headlines, the most recent of which says that Spider-Man will be in the MCU and for a long time. 2 more trilogies to be exact, and more interesting than that, actually 2 or 3 of these headlines worked together to corroborate each other, although coming from very different reporting outlets at different time with seemingly different sources. It seems to work all together to explain not only how Tom Holland's Spider-Man is destined to stay in the MCU for the rest of his arc and the better part of the next decade, but how it will work with the introduction of the Spider-Man Venom verse, how they may bring back Toby Mcquire and Andrew Garfield for a true live-action Spider-Verse crossover, and what that would mean going forward over at Sony now that Tom Holland's locked up over at Marvel. I know at first it sounds kind of complicated, but honestly, guys, it's not, and once you can see all the pieces working together, it actually makes a lot of sense. We're going to break the whole thing down, but first, if you could grab the subscribe button. We're giving away 2 PlayStation 4 Pros, as well as a whole slew of other Marvel related stuff, including some awesome limited edition Infinity Saga box sets throughout the holiday season. All you have to do, hit the subscribe button, then hit the notification bell, leave a like and a comment on this video, and if you want, stick around to the end of the video. We'll get into all the giveaway stuff again there. So the first report, as reported yesterday, that Spider-Man would be in the MCU for 2 more trilogies after they complete the Far From Home trilogy and then another crossover movie as agreed upon in this most recent Spider-Man contract, and that's looking likely considering Tom Holland reached out to Sony in the first place and was firmly on the side of keeping his character Spider-Man in the MCU where his arc originated. Now, if Sony was willing to play ball on behalf of the actor in the first place, that isn't going to change going forward, and as his arc more matures in the MCU, as he becomes a more prominent character and a leader in the image of Tony Stark filling the void left by said character's death, then that's not going to change much. He's not going to want to leave the further this goes, meaning that Sony may have to come up with some sort of solution to having a Spider-Man in their Venomverse. And while a lot of people were quick to point out that Kevin Feige had mentioned Tom Holland's Spider-Man is the only superhero with the superpower to cross over between cinematic universes, quick side note, he forgot to mention Deadpool, that doesn't mean that that's a permanent solution to having all of these Venom movies and more prominently all of these Spider-Man villains, but only having one live-action Spider-Man that does a majority of his acting, movies, and storyline in a different cinematic universe. What could solve this problem, and pretty easily at that, was actually this other headline that broke some 2 days before, presumably from different sources and from a different outlet, that the Spider-Verse hunt is back on over at Sony, that they are actively pursuing bringing back Andrew Garfield and Toby Mcquire to do a live-action 3-piece into the Spider-Verse movie, and this would make a lot of sense. As I said, it solves the problem of having one Spider-Man that's doing a majority of his acting over in the MCU. If you cross them all over and need a different live-action Spider-Man, then you can use Mcquire or Garfield in lieu of not having Tom Holland. Now, even though I thought this report was pretty far-fetched enough for me not to report on it here at the channel over the last week, I definitely see how it works in unison with the other headline to show that Sony may be working on a solution to having Tom Holland but in a limited capacity if they actively want to make Spider-Verse movies. Another very interesting concept to all of this is that their Spider-Verse could actually stand to take part in an MCU crossover event. Cue the third headline in a major scoop this weekend from Marvel scoopster Mikey Sutton that not only is the Venomverse set to intercept with the MCU, but they actually want to use that Venomverse and planet as the planet of the symbiotes during their Secret Wars crossover event. Now, a lot of people have been reporting on Secret Wars Battle World. This is the more recent Secret Wars iteration, the run from 2015, not the vintage run from the 70s. And although we won't break that whole thing down here, we have a very detailed video that I'll make sure to link at the end of this, detailing not only what happened in that storyline, but specifically what it would mean for phases 5 and 6. If Marvel truly is trying to do something like this, it would definitely be along the lines of Avengers Endgame, if not bigger. In that storyline specifically, though, the multiverse fractures, and under God Emperor Doom, certain places are allowed to be ruled by permission, except for 3 which are banished behind a shield wall, one of which is the planet of the symbiotes. Now, the symbiote dimension is completely overrun, and you can think about what Sony has already done in their movies, introducing most of the symbiotes. We had Riot, will soon get Carnage. There's a ton of them already there. If they wanted to go ahead and bring it to its logical conclusion, let it become a dystopian symbiote planet, then they could interject it into the MCU during the Secret Wars event to get it all fixed and somehow become part of a major crossover. It's hard for my brain to think how that would work between Marvel Studios and Sony to pull something that big off, but then again, if you had told me we would have gotten to where we are now, no one would have believed it. Now, back to Spider-Man and how he plays a role in all of this. You can see from these three headlines in concert that he's definitely going to be the key to pulling off a multiverse the way that Sony wants to. Up until now, the MCU has left it pretty ambiguous as to just how it works. You know you can go into the quantum realm, you also know you can time travel through the multiverse, but they haven't really explained how it works in full, and we expect we'll see a lot more of that during Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Even still, one of the best methods to explain things that are really complicated is to not explain them at all, and they've actually been doing a great job of that, leaving details out when they don't have to include them. The problem being, though, if they're truly going to cross Tom Holland over with either of the other Spider-Men that we've gotten in the past, like Andrew Garfield or Toby Mcquire, and or cross them over with Venom or have the Venomverse intersect with the MCU, there's going to need to be explainers in tow. Now, it's up to us to come up with theories until Marvel decides just how they want to do that, and it may be that they haven't decided at all. They could have agreed in the meeting that at some point Tom Holland will cross over with Tom Hardy's Venom, but not figured out just how they're going to do that yet. And on the promise of getting Spider-Man back in the MCU to finish his trilogy, make good on another crossover movie, whether it's Secret Wars or the Fantastic Four, and also give Tom Holland a chance to finish his arc in the MCU as he would have pitched when he called both Disney's and Sony's presidents to bring them back to the table. They could have easily agreed this just simply on the promise of getting him back without having worked out exactly how they were going to do it yet. I said we'll leave that for another day, and that's exactly where my speculation comes in on all of this. Now, just because Sony and Marvel has been able to work together on a couple of Spider-Man movies that have been both critically and financially successful doesn't mean that they can work together big picture on introducing huge franchise crossovers with different franchises, including Venom, Spider-Man, and the already widely successful Avengers franchise. If they're going to do a Secret Wars movie, it's hard to understand how Sony would have any part of that, and if they could barely agree on terms over one character that's very clearly owned by Sony, I could not imagine what the money and contracts would look like if Sony's Venomverse somehow shows up in an Avengers Secret War movie. It seems just way too complicated and not something Kevin Feige would want to do in the first place. But as I've heard other YouTubers mention recently, and truthfully, Kevin Feige has been slowly moving away from this hardline perfection that he's been going for. Even though they stumbled a little bit out the gate with some recastings, this is the most amazing achievement in cinematic history to have a cinematic universe span a decade, this many movies, and be able to pull off Avengers Endgame. And I feel like with that accomplishment and achievement, Kevin Feige can kind of exhale a little bit. You feel a little more relaxed. You've done it. It's okay. Things don't have to be that perfect anymore. We can allow Spider-Man to cross back over into the Venomverse. It's not that big a deal. And if they take that approach and matriculate it into phases 5 and 6 and truly want to do something crazy and really do Battleworld all the justice it deserves, then you would definitely go ahead and include that Sony Venomverse, because it's not like they have any of the symbiote characters in the MCU already, and barring something crazy, they're not likely to. This also lends a ton of credence to the claim that Disney may have taken 25% across the board of all of the Spider-Man projects, and if they did, then the likelihood of them crossing the Spider-Verse over into the MCU, the likelihood of them being able to pull off something crazy like this goes up exponentially, as Kevin Feige's slight involvement could make sure that no matter what the projects do, they don't break with the small details they need them to lead up to this inclusion. I know it's a lot to consider, guys, but when you think about it, when you think about Tom Holland's Spider-Man possibly being locked up at Marvel for 2 more trilogies in the better part of a decade, if Sony and Disney are truly listening to Tom Holland's wishes and doing the character of Peter Parker that the MCU has brought up respect by keeping him there, then Sony's going to be looking for solutions to this problem, including bringing other live-action Spider-Men on board and or doing whatever they can to cross their properties over so that they can use Tom Holland as much as possible. If that means crossing Morbius over, Venom over, Carnage over, or even crossing the entire Spider-Venomverse over for an MCU Avengers Secret Wars event. Guys, let me know what you think in the comments about all of this, how crazy it is, how all of these stories are sort of working together to corroborate the idea that they want a full intersection. And if that's true and it comes out that's what they're doing, do you trust Marvel and Sony to be able to pull something this crazy off? Let me know what you think in the comments, and quickly, let's get into the giveaway stuff before I let you go. We're still giving away 2 PlayStation 4 Pros, the next of which is at the 500,000 subscriber mark. We're headlong into that, should hit that easily by month's end or next. All you have to do, hit the subscribe button, then hit the notification bell, leave a like and a comment on this video, and it'll automatically enter you to win all the rest of the prizes here at the channel, including copies of the Infinity Saga limited number box set. Once they come out, we'll be announcing those through the holiday season. Again, all the same rules apply. All all you have to do, hit the subscribe button, then hit the notification bell, leave a like and a comment on this video. The more videos you like and comment on, the better chance you have of winning. My name's Michael Roman. This is Everything Always. Guys, thanks for checking out the channel and stick around. We'll be posting again real soon.